Kenya is a country with layers of diversity, and differentiating equity from equality is important when attempting to have a fair mechanism to distribution of resources. This includes sharing of resources between national and subnational levels, as well as distribution of resources among counties. The National Equity Week, made possible by International Budget Partnership Kenya, alongside other stakeholders, delved into pertinent questions that affect resource allocation and consequently development. What do Kenyans think about the question of fairness in resource allocation?
Equity is just the equal distribution of resources.
Equity is fairness, that we're equal. That everything is shared equally. That is my understanding of equity.
Proportionate distribution of resources in consideration to maybe marginalized areas, the marginalized groups, and it's not about equality, but it's about bringing a society together in terms of uplifting their standards of living.
Equity means fairness of treatment for women and men according to their respective needs.
Equity is the means, equality is the end. So, for example, in Baringo, everyone should get clean and adequate water. That's a basic human right, and that's why Prof is saying it's a way of thinking of the dignity of the person, that we are all equal and so we want access to water and we should get clean and adequate water. But in order for us to get to that point where everyone has access to clean and adequate water, we have to distribute resources equitably so that the people who don't have water, we are spending more resources for them to actually access the water.
Bridging the inequality gap involves a multifaceted and inclusive approach to the issues that aggravate unfairness to begin with.
Hapana. Sioni hivyo juu saa malikaa geto jo. Geto watu wanaumia sana. Unapata mageto mo mpaka saa hii. Choo ni shida. So sioni kawa na distribute hizo do vipoa. Na kawa na distribute vipoa, uende kwa wao watu huko chini ndio wanajua venye wanafanya na hizo do.
They distribute equally to their counties, but some of them wana pocket, wanatumia kiasi, ingine wana pocket. So I don't think if they are distributed equal in Kenya, because you find that in some of the areas, like some of the counties, so you may find that some areas have adequate resources, but if you go to other places, actually they are not equal.
Yeah, they are not. Sababu ingine unakuta kama ni ministry ingine inapewa pesa mingi na ingine inapewa dogo, ingine wala wanapewa mingi, hakuna kitu wanafanya. Kazi yao ni kupewa pesa na kuiba tu, kunyakua. Mara unasikia hii kitu, when the project is started unasikia haiendelei, imekwama. Unashindwa hiyo pesa wanapeleka wapi na wamepewa hawa wengine.
There are some areas of Kenya that are very disenfranchised, especially the northern side of Kenya, the Turkana. It's unfortunate that they still have the same elected leaders like we all do, but sometimes when I see some of the struggles they're still having, especially on food security, when there are floods, the destruction, I fail to understand on the part of planning on that end, yet we know these things do happen, and yet there are leaders that represent them. So I feel the resources are not equally distributed, because I'm assuming if they were, then such calamities will not be happening.
Every Kenyan and every community within Kenya should have the same rights, particularly those which have suffered a lot. That should be redressed. And in a way, you could perhaps also try to relate equity to the decision then made to have the country divided for administrative and policy purposes into 47 entities.
Allocation now to counties have continually decreased. 3 months of county suffering without medicine, without service delivery, without salaries. That involved a lot of lobbying from Council of Governors so that we enhance the agenda of equity First, on vertical division of revenue, that is from national government to county government, and then between counties, and then on issues that undermine the allocation of both the national government and the county government.
The Equity Week 2019 provided an idea-sharing stage for organizations dealing with inequality issues at county and national levels.
If the people that we have mandated to represent us in the right bodies, parliamentary, senate, the governor, and the whole idea of devolving the government was to try and distribute the wealth equally, if the leaders are doing what is expected of them, then they would be able to negotiate with the national government for proper allocation of resources to their areas.
By ensuring that each and every particular field or area have the same resources.
But I think what we have to do is to make sure that there is fairness all round, fairness in different aspects of our life, and not worry too much whether it's equity or equality.
Evidence is key, and how often we are constantly thinking of how we are creating that evidence will mean that we get closer to dealing with inequalities at the point where they are. Transparency in equity conversations are very important. If we are all as a country are to move in the same direction in terms of understanding what inequalities we are dealing with, in terms of understanding the decisions we need to make so that we can deal with those inequalities, that has to be done in an open space. Number 3, equity in participation. Public participation is not something new in Kenya, we keep saying this. So what is different after we passed the new constitution and we now have counties? How differently are we doing public participation, and especially in thinking about who is still not in the conversation? That is very key. The discussions around equity are always ongoing. The Commission on Revenue Allocation will do a proposal, they will do a new formula every couple of years. That conversation is always happening. The question is, are we always in that conversation? Civic education, we have to help our people understand what we are talking about. Elite capture, which is a term that is used often in decentralization, is a real risk even in the villages. Is that one teacher who goes to all HIV conferences, all conferences on ECD and the children's education? Is the know-it-all anytime the governor is in the village? Is the know-it-all anytime there is a new pastor who has been elected in a city? So we have to be careful about those spaces and make sure that the rest of the population is learning so that they can get to the level of that. Otherwise, then you have very few people who generally get to sway the discussions in these places. And lastly, I think the issue of how decisions are made remains very critical. We devolved because we wanted the decision to be made by citizens and at a level that was much lower than the law. Are decisions being made at that level, or the conversation at the village level, the world level is just picking up what people are thinking, then the decisions are made there? So where decisions are made, it's also very critical.
I think public participation has to move away from policy to practice. We have counties that had public participation acts in 2014, but if you see what they're doing, it does not come close to the acts. It's a question of practice more than policy, and it's practice not for the people in this room, but even the citizenry. How do we help them understand that yes, there are policies, but for them to be enforced, there has to be some kind of social pressure.
The National Equity Week conversations were driven by partners from the Commission for Revenue Allocation, the Council of Governors, Development Initiatives, Kenya Medical Research Institute, Wellcome Trust, and Katiba Institute.